This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Tonight we're joined by Matt Macklin here in Newcastle. Matt, how are you?
I'm good. Can't complain at all.
That's good to hear. Let's come on to this. We just had the weigh-in ahead of this big night of action Saturday night in Newcastle. Savannah Marshall, top of the bill. Let's start there. Defender WBO middleweight title. Good reception for her today. She seems to be at the forefront of what could be a golden era coming up for North East boxing.
Yeah, exactly. She's world champion. She's headlining up here as well. Homecoming, really. I know she's from Hartlepool, but it's only up the road. And, she's in the form of her life. She's bouncing into this undefeated world champion. Knocked out 6 of her last opponents, and I think it'll be another knockout victory for her.
With Savannah, we've seen so many times, she said the Clarissa Shields fight is 99% done. We've seen so many times where there's 1 or 2 more hurdles to clear and then a fight's going to happen. How important is it that she doesn't even think about that fight at all on Saturday night?
Oh, absolutely, because we've seen it. You're right in what you're saying, and we've seen many, many times down through the years, even in recent times, how that can be a banana skin. You take your eye off the ball, you drop it, so she can't afford to drop the ball. She can't afford to lose focus. Do you know what? I don't think she will. I think this is a massive night for her in itself. The fact that she's headlining in the Northeast, and I think she'll want to not just win. I think she'll want to perform to the best of her ability and put on a real show and make a statement.
With this new Sky deal, both with Wasserman and Boxer, there's been a lot of Northeast talent sort of recruited. We're up here for a show this week. Is that a big focus to try and bring this, what is often called a sleeping giant kind of a region, to the forefront of British boxing?
I hope so, because every time we've been up here in recent years, with Lewis Ritson, among ourselves, we've always said, God, I hope this kid keeps winning, because we love coming up here, because the atmosphere, the noise and the energy is as good as I've experienced, anywhere, at any sporting event. It's just phenomenal. I mean, the roof nearly comes off when the local fighters come out. So, I think that, but, if the talent isn't here, then you can't come here. But the talent is here. Savannah Marshall, Lewis Ritson, he was meant to box today. He was poorly, so he's off the card now. But, you got guys like the McCormacks. They're going to be turning over soon. We don't know what they're going to do. They're going to go with Eddie in the zone. They're going to come with Boxer and Sky. You got Mark Dickinson making his pro debut on this card. He's a talent. So there's plenty. April Hunter, she's a character, and she's undefeated, and she's, so far so good. I don't know how good she's going to be. It's too early to say, but she keeps winning. She's someone that I would imagine will build a big fan base.
Also in action on the bill, Hughie Fury's back against Christian Hammer. Hammer has, of course, shared the ring with a Fury before. We've seen what he's all about. Do you think this is, on paper, a distance fight?
Yeah, possibly, because he's a tough nut, isn't he? And Fury is a really good boxer, not a massive puncher. So probably a distance fight. But, I want to see a dominant performance from Hughie Fury. I don't care if it's 10 rounds, but I want to see him, or 12 rounds, but I want to see him really box his head off, show the improvements that he's made, because he's 27 years old, Hughie Fury, and you think that he's fought Povetkin, Pulev, and Joseph Parker in that time, and he's acquitted himself well in those fights. He just wasn't quite good enough at that point to get over the line and win those fights. But he's 27 now. If he can just keep winning, keep progressing, stay active, don't get injured, hopefully, please God, that's, you never know, but hopefully that doesn't happen, and he can keep this boxing 3-4 times a year, build momentum, get activity, really build his sort of profile as well. In 2 years' time, is Tyson Fury still going to be here? Is Anthony Joshua still going to be here? Maybe, but probably not. That could be his time then.
Is that what this is about more than anything then? Them belts are going to be tied up for quite a significant amount of time, but eventually you'd have to imagine they will become loose when somebody retires. For Hughie Fury, is it not only about developing as a fighter, but making sure he's ready, he's world ranked, he's jockeying for position when that time comes?
Yeah, well, look, they took a chance. Hughie Fury has got no padded record. I think he was world junior champion as an amateur, so he had good pedigree, and he's been thrown in deep a few times. It was a gamble. It didn't quite come off, but it was no harm done either. He didn't get beat up or wasn't disgraced in those fights. He was competitive. Just didn't quite have enough at that point to get over the line against those fighters, because they were a little bit too seasoned, a little bit too experienced for him. But he'll have learned a lot from that. But having suffered a couple of defeats, where's the confidence? You don't want him to lose his confidence now. I think the next year or two is key for him. The matchmaking, the managing with him, really, how to move him. Because listen, we're working with the TV and the promoters, they want it all now. They want the biggest fight and the biggest show now. But that's where you need the strong manager. And, Peter Fury will know what he's doing. He'll say, no, not yet. Or, he's got to weigh it up, hasn't he? The risk and the reward. But I think he's 27 years old. He's gone in deep a couple of times. He's had his losses. He's definitely not the end of the world. He's learnt from it. He'll have improved. He'll be a better fighter because of it. But I think he doesn't need any more of those. I think what's crucial now is that they pick the right fights for him. He's got to stay busy. He's got to stay active. He's got to keep the momentum going. Because when the titles get broken up or your Tyson Fury and your Joshua's retire, he's going to be there. He's going to be there waiting for or maybe they're still going, but he thinks, right, I'm ready for you guys now. In a couple of years' time, they're going to be on the slide a bit if they're not retired, and he'll be improved and he'll be in his peak then. So that's when he wants those fights.
Chris Eubank Jr. is back in action. He seems to have been enjoying himself this week. We've seen videos of him out in Newcastle, signing microwaves and all sorts of things. After the disappointment of a couple of weeks ago being pulled out, back in action. He's sort of one of the poster boys of this new era Sky Sports. How important is it on Saturday? Not only wins, but he looks good as well.
Well, look, he's got a big profile, hasn't he? He's been in some big fights with Billy Joe Saunders. He's been big fights with George Groves. So yeah, he's a big name, and I don't think he's going to hang about on Saturday night. He got the rounds, much needed rounds against Marcus Morrison back in May. I think he's going to be frustrated that the fight didn't happen a couple of weeks ago. I know he'll be chomping at the bit, and I'm expecting an explosive early finish from him.
Chris earlier in his career was someone that never really took upon a trainer, never really relied on a trainer in his corner. Now we see him with Roy Jones Jr., someone he clearly has a deep admiration for. How much will Roy add to his game?
Yeah, difficult. We'll have to wait and see. Look, I think he'll give him a lot of confidence, a lot of self-belief. You're someone like that's endorsing you and telling you you can do it. That's only going to do your confidence a lot of good, isn't it? Style-wise, he is what he is, Chris Eubank Jr. He's not going to learn. I don't think he's going to improve loads because he's north of 30. But I think he can learn little tricks of the trade and little moves here and there. So it can only be a positive, that's for sure.
The fight being talked about by many people for later in the year, if Chris avoids any slip-ups on Saturday night, is Liam Williams. How exciting a fight is that? Surely one of the best fights that could be made action-wise in British boxing. Yeah, definitely. But I think at the minute, from Chris Eubank's point of view, he probably thinks that's a tough fight. And what is he really bringing to the table at this point? I think Chris Eubank Jr. has been there. He doesn't really need more miles on the clock because he's already got a few. He's had tough fights, Billy Joe Saunders, George Groves, etc. He doesn't need loads of more hard fights. I think he just needs to stay busy, keep winning, stay active, get momentum, and wait for his shot at a world title. He wants to fight Golovkin. If not Golovkin, maybe Charlo. So I think I don't see him taking a hard fight before he gets his shot. I spoke to Chris yesterday about the difference about how he feels at middleweight, a weight that he's always walking around close to anyway. And when he almost has to eat himself up to super middleweight, is the Golovkin fight, if you had to pick one, the one you'd be most intrigued to see? Yeah, because I think Golovkin's done. I think he's shot. I think Golovkin was on the decline before even the first Canelo fight. That's a few years back now, and several hard fights ago. And you just get older. It doesn't matter if you didn't even have hard fights. You just, father time is father time. And I think he's at the end of the road now. So I think if Eubank got that fight, he may just be too young and fresh and might have too much energy for Eubank at this stage. And I've got to go back to Las Vegas, Matt. One of the great heavyweight fights we saw between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. What did you make of that incredible action? Oh, fantastic. And I think we needed it, didn't we? And listen, the Usyk-Joshua was a good fight. All right, it wasn't the drama, it wasn't the epic up and down affair of Wilder Fury, but it was a good fight. It was particularly those middle rounds where it looked like Joshua was coming back into it, and then the dramatic end when Usyk closed out strong. It was a really good fight. It was an amazing event, and it was a good fight. But then last week was just an epic fight. It was an epic battle. It was an up and down affair. Wilder looked out of it. Fury looked out of it. Then it was just, you couldn't make it up. It was drama. It was excitement. It was blood, guts. It was heart and spirit. And, that's what you love about heavyweight boxing. Right now, in terms of what's left, we're expecting Dillian Whyte as a likely frontrunner. He can beat Otto Wallin to face Tyson Fury. A lot of people calling for the Alexander Usyk fight, or indeed the Anthony Joshua fight, depending on who wins that rematch. Who right now gives Tyson Fury the hardest test out of what's left out there for him? Well, I was just saying this before. Ironically,
I think Usyk is a bad fight for Joshua. Even the rematch, the only way I see Joshua beating him is if he jumps on him and turns it into a Hagler Hearns and bullies him and imposes his physical strength and tries to kind of try and do what Chisora done, but try and do it better. But I don't know if Joshua can do that because Chisora's got fast feet. He's good at closing the distance, but we'll see. But that's a gamble because you're gambling big there. You're going in. You're either going to win big or you're going to lose big because if you don't get Usyk out of there in, say, 4, 5, 6 rounds, you're going to be gassed out. The energy it's going to take to do that, you're going to have nothing left. So you really are rolling the dice. That said, that's the only way I see him beating him. Is he going to can he stand back and outbox Usyk? No, he can't. I don't think so. Unless we hear down the line that he was injured in training and he wasn't as good as he could have been, and we don't know that. We're just judging on what we've seen on the night now. His team will know the ins and outs. We don't know that, but from what I've seen on that night, I think Usyk's got his number. I think it's a bad fight for him. I think style-wise, his assets, his strengths, his weaknesses, it's a bad match for Joshua. I think Fury outboxes Usyk comfortably. I think Joshua gives Fury a better fight. He's got a better chance because he's good at mid-distance. He's got a great uppercut left hook. He's got a great slip outside the jab right hand. He's big, strong and robust where I don't think Fury could just bully him and lean on him on the inside. So, it was like if you go back in the years, Kenny Norton and Joe Frazier gave Muhammad Ali fits. George Foreman blasted them out of there in a couple of rounds, yet Muhammad Ali knocked out George Foreman. So styles do make fights. And it's a cliche, but it's true. And we're seeing it now. I reckon we could see that more than ever if these fights happen between Usyk, Fury, Joshua, etc.
Right, Matt Macklin, we'll leave it there. Thank you as always. Speaking of Boxing Social.